Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about Ubisoft. We haven't talked about them in a while. And they're making headlines for all the wrong reasons again. Now, apparently, they have shuttered a studio that just unionized like last week.
Yeah, it was recently in Canada that they just unionized, and then, they said they're shutting it down for other reasons, but, you know, in air quotes, other reasons. You're like, sure they are, sure.
Sure, Jan. We're gonna talk about this because this is a conversation that keeps coming up. We're seeing all these creative industries unionizing, wanting to unionize, pushing for unionization. I think people have a very wrong take on what that means. I think people think it's going to give them job security. And sometimes, I'm going to be honest, it actually has the opposite effect. It actually puts a huge target on you. And there's been some discussion about, other companies like Rockstar being accused of union busting. But this is wild. Like a week after they formed this union, they shut the studio down rather than deal with them, which I talked about this before in videos. I used to work for a commercial printer. We were a large commercial printer, and the owner of the company sold the company because he did not want to deal with the printers union. He sold off the part of the company that did the web press and all that, because he's like, I don't want to deal with the union. And then the new owner, I think, broke everything up or started over, fired everybody. I don't know how it worked exactly, but that's how desperate he was to get rid of them. And a lot of these companies, especially the ones hurting financially, will do what they have to do to get rid of the union because the union employees cost more.
So when did they actually finalize the union thing? Because they were starting it last summer.
Yeah, so they started in June of 2025.
Right.
And then they announced this week that they were
So they did
forming
the vote, and then finally it got put through.
It got
so
put
it takes
through.
a few months.
It does.
So that means that it's probably as soon as they tried this, they were on the radar. Because you can't just shut something down like within a week. It would have had been planned for a bit. Like, you know what I mean? They would have, you can't shut it down within a week, but you know what I'm saying? Guaranteed they've been watching the situation and then like, yep, gonna get rid of that place.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, because Ubisoft right now, they're looking for places to shut down. They're looking for studios to shut down. They need to cut their costs. They're going through this whole, I don't know what merger thing that they're going through right now.
They still doing that with the Tencent thing? Was that them?
Yeah, they are. They're basically taking all the good IP, or the IP that has potential, and they're kicking it over to this other company, and then they're just letting Ubisoft proper rot, I think.
Now they're closing this place down.
Now
so, I'm just saying the timing seems odd.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, anybody looking at this are like, sure.
So just to restate the official stance on unions is, I think they're good when they work. I think they're
good when they're necessary.
They're good when they're necessary. I think in recent years, especially in the entertainment industry, we have seen massive overreach. And the unions have tried to dictate the content that the studios produce.
Writing rooms, etc.
The number of people required in the writing rooms. And they've actually treated, I think, white-collar work like blue-collar work. And I get not wanting to be stepped on. I totally get that. But a lot of times you got to realize the motivation behind the union is they want to collect dues.
Right. So, and the thing is, it's like, we're not saying it's right, but usually when you unionize like this, it puts a target on you immediately. Yes. And again, two things can be true at once. And just because we're pointing out the reality doesn't mean that we agree with it. We're just saying that the reality of the situation is you start doing this, they're going to come for you. It's wrong, but it is what it is.
So here's the article. This is coming from gamesindustry.biz. 2 days ago, January 5th, Ubisoft Workers of Canada, Halifax. We've officially formed a union. 2 days later, we're out of work.
Damn. So, I almost said the other word. Okay, whatever. Damn.
So this is Ubisoft shuttering freshly unionized Halifax Studios, 71 jobs affected.
Like 2 days ago.
You cost more, and you're going to be harder to fire.
They had been waiting, though. They had been waiting because, what were the odds that it just so happened that they'd announce it 2 days after? They were waiting for the new year. You'd think they would have announced it before today. It's weird.
So they announced the closure of Ubisoft Halifax. This is coming from gamesindustry.biz. The Canadian studio, which was working on mobile titles for Rainbow Six and Assassin's Creed, affecting 71 staff members. Now, both of those franchises, though, are going to, where the hell, I forget the name of it, the other Ubisoft,
Tencent,
the Tencent one. So they're taking all the potentially profitable IP, and they're kicking it over there, and then the crap they're leaving with Ubisoft. So staff at the studio announced only this week they had formed Ubisoft's first labor union in North America, completing a process that started like 6 months ago. They said Ubisoft said the closure was due to an ongoing streamlining and cost reduction process following significant layoffs across studios in the last 2 years. And that actually is true. They've been laying people off for a year or two now because, nobody's buying their shit.
Weird they wait until like after the union's finalized, and then they're not just getting rid of some people; they're closing down the entire place. It's not like they're just picking and choosing. You got union representation, so to get rid of that, we have to shut you all down, and then say you have to be gone. It's Vantage Studios, by the way.
Oh, Vantage. Okay, so again, put some money in the clownfish jar. This happened at a place I worked at where the owner was so desperate to be rid of the union that he sold the company. He sold the company so he didn't have to deal with it. Mm-hmm. So, and they're like, well, we got to shut down some of our studios anyway. They just made a very easy decision for us. So we'll just shut them down. So we don't have to deal with the union. I'm telling you.
You still would have the union there if you got rid of half your people or whatever.
Yep. And you just blame
the whole thing down.
Yeah, and you just blame the economy. Be like, well, we're shutting down studios anyway, and really is
the new shift with because those are titles that would go to the
Vantage or whatever it is. Yeah. So that's their excuse. And I'm sure they thought long and hard about it. They're like, these guys are talking about unionizing. Well, we're going to punt those franchises over to this other company and we'll just blame that. But the truth is they weren't going to pay them more. And it is harder to fire unionized employees. You do have to pay more. You do have to document more. You can't just, in most cases, you can't just like fire people willy-nilly like you can without a union.
I would think though that they would have done. I would have thought they would have done this before the union went through because I think it would have been easier, like in Canada and stuff, to get rid of them had they not been unionized. But if you shut the whole thing down, they're shutting the whole thing down. So I guess it doesn't matter either way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm even gonna tell you, somebody has not sold completely on unions. That I think this was them getting rid of the union.
Yeah, I think that's what it was too. I'm not saying it's right at all. I think it's crap,
I'm just
but
saying
that's
this is what. And we're gonna talk about this in regards to other entertainment industries too. We have a story about what's going on in animation now too, and I think people really assume that just because you're part of a union that you're guaranteed work, one, and that you can't be fired, two, or if you get fired you're going to get some massive payout, parachute or whatever, and that's not the case. And in fact, I think the new reality going forward is most entertainment work will probably not be union. Because I think it's getting to a place where...
which is why the unions, you keep seeing them trying to reach into... we're into podcasting now. Yeah. We're trying to get into, creative content and stuff like that because they know the writing's on the wall. So what they're trying to do is try to get as many different organizations as they can as part of their union because that's they're stretching their fingers out to get more revenue.
Stretching their fingers out.
It's kind of like roots of a plant, Some roots die, you just stretch the other way. You hit like some kind of barricade or rock. You just go the other way to try to find more and branch out further and further and further.
Well, they've said as much. I mean, the one I think it was the WGA said, and that's the writers union. They said that they were going to push into YouTube and push into podcasts because the money wasn't there in Hollywood anymore because there weren't as many productions.
Right, and I think all it's doing is Hollywood's just not. Eventually, they made it in such a way that you have to work with the union, but I don't think it's going to stay that way.
No, I don't think it's going to, and they'll just threaten to replace you with AI or something, or somebody overseas will do your job.
Again, we're not saying it's right. We're just saying this is what's going to happen.
Yeah. So, and this is exactly what happened. So they said over the past 24 months, Ubisoft has undertaken company-wide actions to streamline operations, improve efficiency, and reduce costs, the company said in a statement. As part of this, Ubisoft has made the difficult decision, to close its Halifax studio. 71 positions will be affected. We're committed to supporting all impacted team members during this transition with resources, including comprehensive severance packages and additional career assistance. At least there's that. I've been laid off before, and here's the box.
Oh yeah.
Put your shit in it and get out.
Yeah, the last time they're like, we should give you severance, but we're not gonna. Bye. We're not contractually obligated to do so. So bye.
Yeah, I was management. They didn't give a shit. They're like, whatever. See ya. I was like, wow, okay. So a spokesperson stressed at gamesindustry.biz that the closure was the result of cost cutting that started after the pandemic. That is partially true. That's their official story.
After the pandemic that ended how many years ago?
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, they're still blaming the pandemic. Yeah. Ahead of Halifax unionization processes starting in 2025, and that the company continued to recognize and work with unionized staff globally. The closure is the latest in a series of rolling cutbacks at Ubisoft, the most recent being job losses at Red Lynx and Massive. Late last year, we covered that. The company recently spun off its main franchises into a separate business unit, Vantage Studios, backed by China. Yep, Tencent.
So they had to get in there. Oh, it's not because the union, because we work with other unionized places. It's like, okay. I'm sorry, the optics say otherwise.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but this is exactly what they're doing. Like I said, and we've been talking about this in regards to Hollywood and in regards to animation in particular, that when you make a bunch of noise about being part of a union, it does put a target on you. In this economy right now, it puts a huge target on you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the truth. And if you want to go there, basically the employees are no longer in the position to demand anything from the studios. And I know that sucks and you don't want to hear it.
It used to be that you were there to make sure that you were insured, like basic, conditions, basic, pay, basic raise amounts, things like that. They were like pretty much, that's what it was. And then it went from that to in recent years, but we want the right to demand, to have, say over what we produce. We want the right to say we can reject these things. We want the right to demand so many people in the writer's room. And when you start going beyond the basics, now you're like overstepping, and the unions are overstepping, and people are like, no. Companies are, hell no. And that's just the thing. It's become more than what it was meant to be originally. It was a safeguard. Now it's gone past that.
Yeah, that's just it. And it has become, in a lot of ways, a cash grab, a revenue source for these unions. And they'll say it. Like, you listen to them long enough, they'll be like, well, we got to get the dues. We got to get more dues. We got to get more dues. I'm like, to do what? To go, build yourself a bigger, fancier building? I mean, and there was somebody, it was a Disney Channel star. She said that only 2% of actors that are in the SAG-AFTRA actually were working professionally or making enough money doing it to do it for a living.
Well, that's why they had that big. They were talking about they were preemptively trying to start negotiations towards the next contract. And one of the things they were offering, the studios were offering, was to help pay off their insurance and help give them money for their insurance, because even though you're working enough to live off of, if you work so many hours, you're considered eligible for insurance. So there's a lot of people who are eligible for insurance who are not making a living off of it.
Yeah.
So that means that the union's paying for some things for people who aren't, like, bringing enough in to, warrant it, is how it comes across. So I don't know. But now animation, we already know all the struggles with the animation jobs. They're going down, the union situation. We've talked about it at length. But now there's other groups that have voted to unionize, including remote animators.
Yeah.
Are now are voting that they voted to unionize.
This is wild. Like, I didn't know you could do that. So yeah, they're telling people to come back to office. Now, that was one thing that happened during the pandemic, was that all these animators thought they could work from home. So some of them were moving out of LA and moving to like Nevada or whatever. And they were like, oh, I'm still going to get to keep my job. And they said as much during the pandemic. They're like, oh yeah, well, animation can continue because people can work remotely. And then as soon as the pandemic ended, they're like, nope, psych. You're gonna have to move back. You're gonna have to, work in office. And if you don't, we're gonna get rid of you. Now the remote workers want to unionize. I think because they are concerned that they will get gone. And I think they want to make sure they have a severance package or something. But DreamWorks Animation's remote workers across the U.S. Okay, so this is a lot to unpack just in that one sentence. This is DreamWorks. DreamWorks said flat out that they were going to rely more on AI in India. Mm-hmm. And these are remote workers, and if you're not in office, you're more likely to get chopped. Out of sight, out of mind, right? And
I think it depends on what you do, but yeah.
Yeah. And feature production workers at Netflix Animation Studios and production workers on the show Ted have officially voted to unionize with the Animation Guild and the Editors Guild in an effort to ensure fair pay and treatment for all animation workers. And they will fire a lot of you, I believe, in my opinion. I'm just saying. The National Labor Relations Board ballot count for DWA remote workers resulted in a majority yes vote in favor of union representation with the Animation Guild. DreamWorks Animation Studio will formally recognize, the remote bargaining unit under TAG and begin the process of negotiating a contract. The recognized unit represents remote workers living throughout the U.S. who contribute to LA-based DWA animation projects across both feature and television. These workers perform work already covered under TAG's master agreement when done on-site on campus in LA County, and include roles such as story artists, animators, character effects artists, technical directors, lighters, visual development artists, modelers, and production coordinators, among others.
Now, I'm going to argue on behalf of the remote people, I'm going to argue that if DreamWorks was smart, they would not, they definitely would go along with this. Now, I'll tell you why. Because if animation's so expensive, and one of the things people keep saying is because of where it's based in LA, it's so pricey that if you could live other places, maybe they wouldn't have to be paid as much money. They might be able to get away with paying them a little bit less because they live someplace that's a little less expensive to live in. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying that could be an argument. They may keep their jobs longer than some of the people that you have to pay for insurance and you pay them for them in-house and they demand a lot of money. They'll probably just treat them like every other union person and try to screw them over later. But I'm just saying, as someone, I would think that would be, for animators too, a good idea, because then you could live other places that aren't as expensive. Because I know one of the things that worked for us before when you did comics and things was we didn't live in the city areas. No. So that were the bases for these organizations and groups and companies. So what would happen would be is they could pay you a little bit less than they were paying people there. It was a lot of money. It was still good pay, but they'd save money by hiring people like you to do things, and they wouldn't have to pay for your overhead, and you'd be responsible for your computers and your own studio and things like that. They didn't have to pay for insurance and all that. It actually saved them money. So, in defense of the remote workers, I think that the animation studios might want to consider letting more people do remote work as long as they do the work, because it might benefit those animators that they can live in a place that isn't so expensive.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I'll make that argument.
I know what usually happens, though, unfortunately, is if you're not in the building, again, out of sight, out of mind, you're easier to cut when nobody's seen true. Frank for 6 months.
Yeah, and you can just cut you on a phone call as opposed to having to pay face to face. No, that's true too. I'm just saying, in their defense, as a side argument, I'd make, because I think people would be better to get out of LA, but that's just me.
Well, I think this is all tied together. So this is the Animation Guild's business representative, Steve Kaplan. Okay. Mm-hmm. So he's talking about how we're continuing to expand our jurisdiction both inside and outside the scope of our master agreement as we continue to look forward to protecting the rights of all animation workers regardless of zip code. They have said before, not just the Animation Guild, but all these unions, that they are scrambling, trying to find new revenue sources.
Well, yeah, I'm sure that's a big part of it.
They wanted us to join. They were trying to get us to join the union a couple of years ago, and I'm like, hell no. You're not going to tell me what to do.
That was before, now they wouldn't be.
No, I don't know. They might, because they're so desperate. They're going out to YouTube. They're going to podcasters. They're trying to get, indie people.
Same YouTubers they threatened that, if you speak out.
I mean, I think remote workers should have the same treatment if you're working for the company, but I just don't. I don't know what the long term is. I think once these projects are done, they're gonna be like, well, if we can work with somebody in Idaho, we can work with somebody in India. So
yeah, I know, I agree. I'm just saying, but I'm just saying if they could keep it, that more people could work remotely and still be covered by a union, it might not be a bad thing for both the company and for the animators.
Yeah.
I'm saying that was pie in the sky, and I know that.
Right.
I'm just saying, in my opinion, that would be better for everyone. But ultimately, the company's just going to care about what's cheaper.
Yeah, and that's the truth, and that's what I want to stress. I'm not anti-union, but I think what we're saying is it does tend to put a target on you in this economy if you cost more. But if you can get the money and you can get the better treatment, and you don't have to sell your soul to get it, okay. You do what's best for you, right? You got to do what's best for you.
But look what happened to they're saying it's not because they unionized in Canada, but a couple days later, oh, by the way, we're shutting you all down.
I 100% agree that's why. All right, we got to wrap it up.
Yes.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.